Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast, Courtside View, your front row seat to the convergence of data science and biomedical innovations. Whether you are tuning in for the first time or you've been following us, today's episode is a very special one. We are stepping away from our usual deep dives into topics such as RAG pipelines, biological data storage, and ontologies because something big just has happened last week, and we had BioIT World Conference. So this week, in this week's episode, we are recapping BioIT World Conference and the Expo. It is one of the premier global events where technology meets the life science, and it's where you see how emerging techs and analytics are pushing the boundaries of biomedical research, drug discovery, and patient outcomes often. Now, before we dive in, I'm your host, Iman Bhattacharya, Senior Global Product Marketing Manager at QIAGEN Digital Insights. And I am joined by two of my favorite champions from QIAGEN, Venkatesh Mokatali and Joseph Pearson. Venki and Joe, hi. Great. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself? What do you do in QIAGEN? One of you, maybe Venki, you go first.
Okay, sounds good. Hey everyone, I'm Venki here. I am director for product management here at QIAGEN, and I manage the Knowledge Graph products. That's me.
I'm Joe Pearson. I'm the global product manager for Omicsoft, which is also part of QIAGEN Digital Insights, and I'm Venki's colleague.
That's awesome. And you're both my colleague. And we are all at BioIT last week. It was such a fun time. It was a great learning and all of that. So before even we dive into this episode, let me ask you this question. In your opinion, what defined the BioIT World Conference this year? What do you think?
Joe, you want to take it?
Sure, yeah, I'll go first. It's been fascinating to see how quickly the trends have changed in terms of the major theme. A few years ago, many people were talking about federated data. Then ChatGPT came out, and everybody had a GWiz application to just try to show how to do this. Last year, the big focus was on an actual real improvement to many of the software products using generative AI. And we've seen a refinement of that this year, especially a common theme that I was seeing routinely was with the application of different agents.
Yeah, that's actually I agree with that. I felt like a lot of things were it was like things were coming of age in the past bio-its that I've attended. They, especially since ChatGPT came out, there was a little bit of sort of 2 years ago you started seeing some news around what is graph rag, what is AI, and people, the moment you had AI in the talk title, the rooms would be crowded. Right now it almost seems like people have matured up, and now they have more sophisticated architectures being spoken of. So I thought that was a good refresher. It almost feels like we've over that hype cycle. I don't know if I shouldn't jinx it perhaps, but I felt like we are over the hype cycle where now people, you see some real tangible applications come out. But otherwise, I thought that it was amazing. It was a lot of attendance, right? Like we looks like we've definitely put COVID behind us, and you see a lot more participation, a lot of people. It was fantastic to just hang out with everyone and understand what's going on. Yeah.
I have to agree with you, Venki. It was super exciting, and just to be able to see everyone in person, so especially one of our pharma partners and the customers, and learning from the data scientists, and then overall what people are thinking, what to come like for the next years or then like over the timeline. It was very very exciting. And we from QIAGEN, we had a pretty exciting lineup of the sessions. We had three different sessions, and I'd love to for our audience to hear directly from both of you. But before that, in the session one, it was all about knowledge graphs on the day one, where we co-presented with our partner Neo4j on the topic of building enterprise scale knowledge graph for biomedical discovery, strategies, insights, and impact. It was a great session with a lot of practical depth and architectural guidance. And in the session two, on the day two, the part of advancing AI for drug discovery track, Venki, you presented causal embeddings, knowledge graphs, and multi-omics integration. Would you, and I know everything is available on demand, but for our audience, would you like to summarize that session for our audience currently, Venki?
Yeah, definitely. I also want to comment on the Knowledge Graph Symposium, right, which
Sure.
was on what was it, day
Day one.
one
Yeah.
of the conference. I thought it was great, right? Like you had so many different applications of knowledge graphs coming together across academic, industry, and within industry, pharma and vendors, both giving their perspectives. It was really refreshing to see. I especially enjoyed the work. I really appreciated the work that was done by the team at Human Reference Atlas. What an amazing body work they've put together, right? I think you need more such projects, especially sort of the complete depth of knowledge they've brought together at single cell resolution has been fantastic. uh, Ourselves, we spoke with Neo4j. We highlighted how the partnerships are coming together, and especially ours, in where we are bringing in the content. Neo4j brings in all of their graph database content and all of the goodies with graph data science libraries and such. And I thought people engaged a lot. They appreciated how these two things come together. Especially our customers are already seeing the value out of it immediately, right? You have on one hand this high quality data, and then on the other hand, bringing in all of the powerhouse that Neo4j is. So that was great. There were also a number of other industry and academic talks highlighting, how knowledge graphs are being used, for instance, in academic collaborations, in multi-omics integration, which is becoming a increasingly an important theme, right? Like how do you bring in multi-omics data into the knowledge graph, and so that you never leave the premise of the knowledge graph in order to interrogate and validate your hypothesis. So that was great. Sort of transitioning into the AI in drug discovery and development session, where I provided my talk, the focus was essentially on different applications that we've progressed on in the last couple of years, especially causal embeddings, and also knowledge graphs, and how we are using those to do gene and target prioritization. Right, and then also finally looking at other more advanced machine learning concepts like link prediction. So those are all things that we've done for our customers, and so I presented on that work. Especially a few things that I'd like to highlight is that we've of course generated these causal embeddings, and as you start hearing more about Gen AI architectures and conversational tools and such, embeddings help a lot, right? It's not just guilt by association, but also when you have a knowledge graph like the biomedical knowledge base, which is manually curated, you can really anchor on actual mechanistic relationships, right? It's not guilt by association. You're really jogging through the knowledge graph to come back with answers. So our customers are already using these, so we spoke about that. In addition, I also want to mention that there was especially a customer, in fact, based out of the Massachusetts area where we were presenting last week, where they've used our link prediction and our knowledge graphs in order to essentially expand the indication of a particular antibody. No, sorry, it was a interferon gamma drug that they've designed against myeloproliferative neoplasms. And so we help them expand the indications using link prediction and knowledge graphs. That was presented at the American Society for Hematology, right? So that was a highlight for me. There were a lot of people who came back to us and were asking questions. But otherwise, that was sort of the pitch, right? Look, we are doing all of this work, and let's collaborate here.
Yeah, that was really awesome. Thank you for summarizing. And on session three, the same day, we actually had a back-to-back talk, which was focused on AI in oncology, precision medicine, and health. Joe, you presented on the topic of exploring patterns in cancer with integrated multiomic data. Would you like to summarize or walk us through that one for a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. My focus was really just advocating for thinking deeply about your data structures and schemas and your data model and your general procedure for integrating different data sources, because you could either do a quick and dirty approach to try to integrate various data sets to answer the specific question. But if you do the upfront work of considering the current use case as well as future use cases, think a little bit about tooling, procedures, protocols, and so forth, you can actually acquire a corpus of related data sets that can actually be used together to make new discoveries. And you can also capture data beyond your your initial use case, and then mine those data sets in the future to answer different kinds of questions. And my talk was just focused on a couple of different use cases, quick examples showing how I've seen data being captured early on and then being used, months, years later to answer entirely unanticipated questions.
Okay, thanks, Joe. That's really awesome. What were the other topics in your same track where you're presenting in the AI in oncology and precision medicine?
Yeah. So there was definitely a theme that I saw in the other presentations, and that is the value of well curated, well structured data beyond just my focus, which is on multi-omics data, to mine to look for patterns for new targets. But I was seeing the same kinds of customer problems in terms of messy data and the amount of time that bioinformaticians and data scientists are spending integrating data, whether you're looking at genetic data, GWAS data, real world evidence data, or even imaging data. The problem is always the same. It takes way too much time to integrate these data into a common format. And so people are looking for different kinds of tools and solutions that accelerate that and allow people to have the data to actually answer questions of value.
Great. Time is the essence. Thanks to both of you. And it's clear from our sessions that how cutting edge techs and data science is actively transforming drug discovery from new discoveries to generate more accurate and actionable insights, and from multi-omics integration to causal embeddings and to large-scale knowledge graph. And these are just academic concepts anymore. These are just like becoming real deployable solutions in pharma. And we are, and some of our partners are actively helping them. So it was just really eye-opening for me to see, specifically in BioIT and in 3 of our talks, which was great. And then for the audience who are listening, there are on-demand talks available. You can go and check it out. And I will plug the link here in the comments below sections. And go ahead.
Iman, I also want to add a quick thing for on at Joe's track. Right, I attended at least a couple sessions where, and this resonated even in other tracks, right, where because now there are more people implementing methods, Gen AI, ML. You name the term here. There is of course now a need for orchestrating all of that, right, with high quality data. And I think there was, interestingly, I saw that there were two takes, and one is this completely managed service, which we do quite a bit, right, like where you basically uh, you outsource all of this effort onto someone, and they can really manage all of the data, the inflow of the data, the curation of the data, putting it all together so that you can focus on solving your problems and asking your questions and not bother about all of these things. That's one track. The other track was also, there were a lot of vendors now, much like Nvidia, Amazon, other guys who are also now talking about infrastructures, right, that can help on the other side. So it was it was very refreshing to see all of this coming together. Right? There is the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure, the hardware infrastructure, and then people like us bring in the data and the services, and then on top of it, pharma is now left to really do what they do best, right, ask questions and move their assets up up the clinical trials. And so I thought that was very interesting to see how this is all coming together. That was one. Two was, I see academics doing a hell of an amazing job, right, where there were quite a few talks. At least the one that I remember was where they are now using not just these there is of course fine tuning models, but then are they giving the right answers, right, and how do you cross check those answers? And I saw that there was this whole, like Joe mentioned, right, there's this whole agentic framework that people are bringing in, where one agent speaks with another agent and they have this sort of crosstalk and come up with an answer, and then there is additional agents that then pick up that answer and then transcribe it to human consumption. That is amazing, right? Like just 2 years ago, forget 2 years, even 1 year ago, you wouldn't think of these sorts of frameworks. So I thought that was also something that those were a few things that caught my eye as well.
For sure, like GenAI frameworks and also enabling from all the sides. That's what I have seen. And then it was very like interesting to see how the booths and everything were lined up based on whether their storage, their structurally deployable solutions, their data science, and some of them were really nicely arranged. Joe, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think Venki's observations were spot on.
Fantastic. And now let's expand the lens and talk more broadly about the conference a little bit. I'll probably ask this question to Venki, but Joe, also feel free to chime in. What trends stood out? I think you kind of mentioned that in the beginning, but specifically in this year BioIT, what trends stood out for you? Any themes you saw repeatedly across talks or booth, or any person, people you've spoken to that stood out?
I've mentioned some of these things, but one thing that I thought was really interesting to see was something that came in the form of a question at a keynote. I think it was a day two, I believe, where someone asked, "Hey, what sort of data sources are you using to train your models? You've bought up a bunch of models," and the person who was asking the question said, "Well, I mean, we think that public data is trash, that it's maxed out." And I've seen this same sort of rhetoric in the last couple of years, but it was very interesting to see a change in stance. Right, this keynote speaker mentioned that they did not agree at all with this take. Right, they, on the other hand, mentioned that uh, in fact public data is enough. Right, that all you need is really high quality curated public data that is well annotated, well structured, and that you ask the right questions. Right, that you train your models, or your SaaS solutions, or whatever other product you're using internally on top of the data. As long as it's asking the right question, that's structured well, that is all you need. I think we have enough there, that we have not yet done a good job looking at that. And so that was a really refreshing take, right? And I agree with that. I think we've seen this time and again, right? When you ask good questions on top of really high quality data that come straight from that same public information that we've generated over the past almost multiple decades through academic collaborations and government funding, I think that's enough. That was one. um, I also saw the corroboration of the same rhetoric from a panel that I attended, right, where there was Brian Martin from AbbVie, there was Helena, and then there was Ben and a bunch of others, and where I think Helena mentioned this other thing, right, where you saw that AlphaFold 1 and 2, they use the same data, right? The magic happened in the way they designed the product, in the way they had architected these software, these algorithms, right? That's what changed. The data was identical. So that was very interesting take, right? Like, we've now seen all of this conversation around how we need proprietary data, but hey, there's, like, I think people are now taking a pause and saying, hey, I don't think that's necessary. You have good data. Let's just do a good job of curating it, annotating it, which is what I'll throw in a shameless plug. This is what we do, and so I think that it was good to see this sort of argument come back. Yeah.
Venki, did you get a sense for the people who were making these arguments back and forth? Did they have a vested interest in one way or another? Are they personally biased towards AI will solve everything versus no, you need to have manual effort to unify everything?
Yeah, good question. The people who were doing the talk, I both of them were from pharmaceutical space, right? These are folks who are their only vested interest is in efficiency and in making sure that they have the best possible data and the best algorithms that can give them assets that are going to uh, actually move past phase two or phase one, right? So I don't think there were any vested interest there, but obviously, right, there are a lot of different folks coming in with a lot of different takes. I think that we've seen now a maturity in that discussion as well, right? Like, I think uh, data that is AI curated now, people are also now adding multiple layers of manual curation, right? They've recognized that just AI curated data is not good enough. We should add a human intervention. So there were uh, quite a few vendors, quite a few academic groups who mentioned that sort of evolution, right? It's not just NLP, it's not just AI, and you just funnel it through. There is like some sort of a human midpoint, right, where a human is actually looking at these results, interpreting them, so that you spend less time doing that downstream. So yeah.
And so, speaking of vested interests, BioIT is very IT and bioinformatics focused, and I've seen in the past debates about whether any of these technologies, applications, data sources should be designed to democratize and enable access for scientists, regardless of their background, versus really focusing on accelerating the experts in answering questions more effectively, more quickly for the biologists, so they can kind of stay in their lane and concentrate on the wet bench. Did you happen to notice any patterns this year or shifts over the past couple of years? I definitely did not see something really focusing on simplifying access for every user, but there's always an emphasis in so-called no-code or low-code infrastructures, and previously we've talked about conversational UIs to accelerate answers for the biologist. But in the age of AI, it's that much easier to get a very confident-sounding wrong answer, hallucinations, and so forth from the data. And so I was wondering if you had any observations from this year.
No, I think you captured most of what I've seen. It's really there is of course there's I think it's understood, right, that while we are working on all of these complex and sophisticated frameworks architectures, ultimately the consumer is a molecular biologist. It's a biochemist, right, who is going to interpret that and then translate that into some sort of a value add into that entire pharma ecosystem or the research ecosystem, and that can't happen unless you present it visually in a manner that is understandable, right? That people can take it further. I think that's appreciated across the board. I do see some efforts. I think, like for instance, the Human Reference Atlas folks have done quite a bit of work in that space, and I remember that them stressing about the need to make it more palatable. Yeah.
Yeah.
For our audiences who are listening, Venki was talking about a panel on day one, the panel called Pre-Introducing Knowledge Graphs and LLMs, Dangerous Predictions, and About the Next Token. It was chaired by Ben Busby from NVIDIA, and the panelists were Helena Deus from Bristol Myers Squibb, Brian Mutton from AbbVie, and Tom Plasterer from Exponent Data. So that's the panel Venki was referring to. Correct, Venki?
Yeah, that's right. If you attended the conference, I think they've been providing on-demand sessions, so you can log back into that website and take a look at it. I thought that the conference was very well organized, so kudos to Cindy and her team.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. I hear that it's growing big and nicer every year. And of course it's not about what we just saw. We also had a chance to speak with some of the incredible scientists from pharma, across the pharma companies, our partners in the ecosystem, and some of our colleagues. And let's hear what they had to say about Biology 2025, where they think the biomedical AI is headed. We're going to play a montage and a video right after this, and that's for you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out all the different ways that pharmas and our partners are able to collaborate to bring medicine to patients faster.
Yeah, so I'm most looking forward to seeing all the customers we have here, our QIAGEN Digital Insights, as well as learning about the state of the art of the field in terms of how artificial intelligence is being adopted by pharmaceutical companies and the emerging ecosystem of other startups that are contributing to the growth of the field as a whole.
I was looking forward to learning how people are leveraging knowledge graphs to make new insights into oncology.
So actually just interacting with colleagues from former companies, current companies, being part of the entire event where I can see what the latest technology is, listening to the keynotes that really dictate what's going on in the industry, and being able to bring that back to my company and capitalize on it.
I think this is the fourth year for me at BioIT. One of the things that I most look forward to is, as head of partnerships, is catching up with my partners, my associated partners in other companies like QIAGEN as an example, because more often than not we are working together trying to solve the same challenges for our customers. So coming together, sharing ideas, discussing tactics for how we're going to increased value for customers that we're engaging is one of the things that I most look forward to when I attend the BioIT conference.
BioIT would like to understand, okay, at BioIT I would like to understand, so there is a lot of buzz around AI drug discovery. However, how much of that is really translating towards success is a question that has been always asked. So I was at last year BioIT as well, and this year I would like to see is that what are the steps that the field has taken to ensure that we are answering the questions of a lot of critics around AI in drug discovery.
Definitely the Knowledge Graph Symposium. Wednesday was awesome. Yeah.
So coming from more of the technology side, being at Neo4j, I'm just really excited to hear about how people are actually applying these kind of new technologies like graphs, like generative AI, and just seeing the impact that people are achieving using these new methods is really what I'm most excited about. I think the dawn of agentic AI is really a hot topic. I'm sure everyone else has been talking about it today, but it's really taking the AI and putting it in the hands of the scientists. So they no longer have to come to us in IT and ask us to do tooling for them. They can just ask a question, get answers in their fingertips, and apply it immediately to their workflows.
So one area that's particularly interesting is the idea of digital twins. It's still got, it's very early days, still a long ways to go, but this is trying to create simulations without having to do wet lab experiments for every single outcome and have some predictive power in the meantime. A lot of folks are on different parts of the pharmaceutical value chain are working towards developing, as well as for experimental outcome data too.
As far as what I've seen here, I'd say that's actually Knowledge KB by QIAGEN. It's got the data sets that I wanted to be trying to build myself.
Well, you can't leave this conference without acknowledging that AI is changing the landscape of everything that we're doing, looking at genomic sequencing and how that can be leveraged to actually find targets and cure disease. It is exciting because in so many different ways it's accelerating what we're doing, especially in the pharma industry.
Yeah, well, knowledge graphs are very, very close to my heart at OntoForce. So I've been very interested to hear presentations from companies like Takeda, who are presenting their ideas around knowledge graph reasoning and using LLM reasoning models like Ultra. So Takeda talked today on Friday, about how they're using our Discover Knowledge Graph to interact with the Ultra knowledge graph reasoning to help with more accurate predictions on disease target validation.
I think that's the AlphaFold moment for which has enabled us to use years of data of protein structures and use that for taking a leap in our drug discovery efforts. I think that's the key, most important discovery that has been made recently in AI/ML.
Me personally, right now, I think it's GraphRag. Integrating the knowledge graphs with large language model AI agents is going to accelerate how we can do our analyses and information gathering. It's a lot.
From my perspective, I think that knowledge share is really important, and being able to kind of share insights and have collaborations across biotech is really what drives innovation. So from that perspective, I think that generative AI, GraphRag, and more recently the model context protocols are going to enable people to access a lot of different technologies and a lot of different data sources more easily. And so I'm hoping that that's going to drive a lot more innovation. Yeah, so at AstraZeneca, we are doing a variety of kind of low-hanging fruit AI implementations. One of the ones that we have done recently that has made a big impact on our scientists is having an AI-generated summary assistant that's embedded into our electronic lab notebook. A lot of scientists go really crazy in the data, but they don't do the summary, and down the road, that's really what we need to look at when we're doing a lot of our regulatory filings. We're launching this in Q2. We are estimating it will save up to 30 minutes per experiment, times 5,000 experiments at 4 different sites, saving a lot of time with a fairly low lift effort.
Yeah, I think in terms of practical impacts, there's most of the impact so far, I think, is improving the ability of folks to find information. There's still a lot of training that needs to be done to get adoption within the pharmaceutical industry to pick up the use of AI to help their workflows. But practically, I think the primary one so far is really just getting folks to help get to answers more quickly and find things that may be otherwise harder to find that they didn't know existed.
That I use, practical impact would be some of these interpretable AI methods and for feature selection to reduce a black box model to an explainable one.
Well, it's nice to hear from other companies that they're dealing with the basics, like taking care of data governance, ensuring that data is available for usage across the enterprise, ensuring quality data, that data is fair. Obviously, my area is around data and data governance, so that's what's the most meaningful to me.
Yes, I think one thing I've observed is that the conversation is moving more from a theoretical conversation to a practical outcome conversation. So an example would be with AstraZeneca, who recently published a paper on how they're using AI and ML models to help to identify specific patient cohorts that are most effective for their non-small cell lung cancer treatment. So it's great to see. Yeah, it's always great to talk about the theory and hear what people are doing. I think what people are very interested in hearing about is like, okay, how is this now impacting patients in a real sense? And I think we're starting to see that.
In day-to-day drug discovery, I would certainly say things have become much faster. Scientists can really, that would take them a lot of research to get an answer to a particular question. They could get that very quickly, and at the same time, so there is clearly an acceleration in terms of speed of a question that a biologist experience or a drug discoverer experience. So that has definitely is the day-to-day impact. However, how much of the the hypotheses that the AI has generated translates into success in the clinics is a challenge that we have to solve altogether.
I don't work too much with drug discovery, so I'll change it to clinical trial operations. Again, we can just generate insights, a lot faster. We can generate next best actions. We can generate, trying to think of a different insight right now. Just generate more insights more rapidly using the AI tools.
So I've really seen, again, coming from Neo4j, I've seen the impact of applying graph algorithms to drug discovery in order to accelerate finding those key targets or those targets that might actually have a successful impact in the drug development and drug discovery process. So that's a really an exciting practical application that I've seen.
Yeah, I think emphasizing that data needs to go through some sort of clearinghouse in order to apply AI to it. Data junk in, junk out, right? We see a lot of hype around things like agentic AI, as I just said, and our scientists want to use it, but they don't understand that they need to centralize and standardize the data to make the data work harder for them and not the other way around.
So there's a couple. One is just leveraging awareness, so making people know where to go to get AI assistance or answers for their particular needs. The other is just continuing to develop a reliable AI that folks have trust in to give them information, answers, or insights to help them get their work done.
Data curation, merging multiple data sets together so that you can very easily query them, and wide adoption of interpretability methods. Yeah.
It starts with good data. So data integrity, data quality, and having the right metadata management around it so you know the source of the data and can be transparent in the leverage and usage of that AI.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer. I think in our world, it's always about the quality of the data, the quality of the data inputs. So, everyone kind of uses the term garbage in, garbage out, and really to get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of the impactfulness of the AI and ML models, then you really need to focus on the data quality that goes into these models. And I think one of the things that we hear a lot about at the conferences, and one of the things that my company talks about, is how we can leverage knowledge graphs as a way to harmonize and verify data before it's integrated into these AI and ML models for more effective outcomes.
I think today AI is a big buzzword. A lot of large language models. Why it is so successful is because it has years worth of good data to train on. Good data is something that AI in drug discovery clearly lacks. More and more, the data quality, fairer data that we get for training our AI models that are helping us discover new drugs, that would determine the success. So the data quality is something that is the current challenge that we have to address.
I think it's model transparency. Large language models are beautiful creations that can do weird things that we don't really, I think, fully understand yet, and convincing people outside of data science and AI that it is doing something that is not bad or erroneous is going to be a big hurdle. And once you get that done, I think it's going to really accelerate.
So I think there's always these advancements in methods, there's always these advancements in technology, but I always also see a recurring theme of coming back to data quality, garbage in, garbage out. And so I think that's always the problem that really needs to be solved first in order for any of these other advancements to really have a huge impact.
Yeah, I think the application, again, of agentic AI and deep learning, really exploiting the capability of knowledge graphs to draw conclusions so that we can reduce the number of trials we have, drive our sustainability, reduce animal testing, things like that should really go a long way.
So as far as game changers, there's quite a variety out there. As mentioned, I think digital twins is a ways out, but that will be a big game changer once we're able to get regulators to accept digital twin output, and also build models that produce digital twin simulations in a way that's really enabling customers to and people to have some understanding what outcomes are likely based on what drugs they may use or develop as well.
Again, the interpretability stuff, so like algorithms like Corals and Ghost, which are developed by UNC. Yeah.
Obviously, just simply the implementation of AI and ML across the spectrum of what we're doing in the drug discovery and production pipeline. It's exciting to see what's going to happen in the future, because it's truly, when you talk about target identification to inpatient in a year, that's really changing the face of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier about some of the generative AI models and knowledge graph reasoning models like Ultra that Takeda presented on today. So yeah, it's great to hear not only about these new models that are coming out, but how they're being practically used in use cases for things like target identification and biomarker discovery. So yeah, I think the more, and what I really appreciate is the willingness of pharmaceutical companies to openly share how they're using these models with their peers to, again, help with more effective outcomes as it relates to drug development and ultimately patient outcomes.
So currently, I think the AI can design a lot of molecules and a lot of drugs. However, designing something doesn't guarantee its success in the clinics. So I think the design to success bridge has to be something that we have to bridge. So when a new molecule is designed by the AI, there has to be information why and which part of the molecule will be problematic and which will lead to its success. I think bridging just a new design. So for example, if a structure-based drug design is made, there can be a very pretty looking chemical molecule, but in that chemical molecule, is there information that will guarantee, okay, why this might fail or succeed in the clinics is something we need to solve. And I think that will be a breakthrough that I'm really looking forward to.
I'm still on the knowledge graph hype train, I think. So as that kind of becomes more and more common, just the new data structure and how we can access it to create new insights onto linkages between people or drugs or biomarkers is going to change a lot of things.
So I think the ability to connect insights across multimodal data, so being able to connect the dots between, like imaging data from the clinical side along with the more molecular information is going to be really critical for driving that innovation. And so I think that having data structures that can enable that is one part of it. So coming back to knowledge graphs, but I also think having embedding spaces and ways that we can actually translate information across these multiple modalities is going to be really important.
All right, that's what you heard. And before we wrap, I want to leave you both with one last question, and that's what one have been hearing in nearly every hallway conversations in BioIT. With all the excitement around generative AI and graph-based reasoning, the question isn't if we will use them, but how smartly we'll integrate them into the drug discovery pipeline. So Venki and Joe, both of you, feel free to chime in. How do you think we can best leverage knowledge graphs and large language models or LLMs to accelerate really like drug discovery process and improve drug development outcomes? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think there are a lot of potential applications here, but each individual application needs to be very carefully evaluated to make sure that it's not misleading people or forcing them into a particular mode of thought. So there needs to be a lot of conversation. I think Venki mentioned earlier the idea of these multiple agentic AI applications validating the results and trying to do some detection there, but you really have to keep the human in the loop.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of those, and I think it really is. It's if we realize something, it is that the needs are so varied from an organization point of view. So it highly depends on who's what kind of things people are trying to do. But I think that the best thing I would mention is let's not reinvent the wheel, right? There are a lot of parts of this workflow that have already been done very well. And I do see some organizations, some folks trying to do it back from scratch. Curation, I feel, is one job that is extremely intensive. It's time taking, and you also need to have a good amount of experience doing it. So how about we leave that to people who've done it, or leverage the work of the community, right? In terms of ontologies, in terms of the integration process. That would be an example. Second is also that I think there is I don't think that we should be afraid of embracing these new technologies, right? I don't think that these are going to replace our scientists. It's not going to replace the human element, right? It's, if anything, it's going to enhance our capabilities and bring us to results much faster. Let's embrace them. I appreciate the fair degree of skepticism, but let's not alienate this technology. Let's not be scared. Let's go ahead. Let's have that healthy skepticism, and then collaborate and communicate to best use these to accelerate our processes.
That's the best way to wrap the episode 3. And so that's a wrap for Courtside View, so episode 3, season 1. A huge thanks to Venki and Joe for joining me today. And all of you are listening and watching. If you found this episode valuable, hit the subscribe button here or here, wherever you find this one. Leave us a review or comment, or reach out to us, any of us, via LinkedIn. And check out the other episodes where we break down the core of the tech that's shaping precision medicine and data science. And until next episode, stay data-driven, stay bold, and we will see you in Courtside View episode 4. Bye, everyone.
QIAGEN.
Sample to insight.